And I've auditioned for a lot and haven't got a lot. And then Gran Torino came around where he was talking to me. It was like
Scott
his little
Eastwood
role.
grew up with a name that many people in Hollywood already knew well. As the son of legendary actor and director Clint Eastwood, many fans might assume that Scott's path to fame was easy and filled with advantages. However, the truth about his early life is much more complex. Scott was born in 1986 to his mother Jacelyn Reeves, who was working as a flight attendant at the time. His parents were not married, and because of this, Scott's childhood unfolded far away from the bright lights of Hollywood. While Clint Eastwood was already a famous movie star appearing in major films and building one of the most respected careers in the entertainment industry, Scott was growing up in a much quieter environment. Much of his childhood was spent in Hawaii with his mother, where life was simple compared to the busy world of film sets, movie premieres, and award ceremonies. Instead of being surrounded by celebrities, he experienced a normal childhood that included school, outdoor activities, and everyday responsibilities. Growing up in Hawaii gave him the chance to develop his own personality without constant attention from the media. However, even though his father was not always physically present in his daily life, Scott was always aware of the powerful legacy connected to the Eastwood name. People around him knew who his father was, and that knowledge created a quiet pressure that followed him as he grew older. During those early years, Scott was not fully part of the Hollywood world that his father belonged to. Instead, he existed on the edge of it, observing from a distance. This unusual upbringing shaped how he viewed fame and success. While many children of celebrities grow up surrounded by luxury and public attention, Scott's early life was defined more by privacy and independence. This separation from the Hollywood spotlight allowed him to build his own identity slowly, even though the famous surname he carried would eventually draw attention once he stepped into the acting world. Being the child of a world-famous actor can create both opportunities and challenges. For Scott Eastwood, the connection to Clint Eastwood brought admiration from fans, but also heavy expectations. Clint Eastwood is one of the most recognizable figures in film history, known for classic westerns, action films, and award-winning dramas. Because of this powerful reputation, Scott understood from a young age that if he ever decided to enter the film industry, comparisons would be unavoidable. As he moved into his teenage years and early adulthood, he began to think more seriously about his future. Acting seemed like a natural direction because storytelling and filmmaking were already part of his family background. However, Scott did not want to be known only as the son of Clint Eastwood. He wanted the chance to prove that he could succeed through his own effort. This desire pushed him to take a very careful approach when he first tried to build a career in Hollywood. Rather than immediately using the Eastwood name, he began working under the name Scott Reeves, choosing to use his mother's last name. This decision may seem small, but it carried deep meaning. By doing this, Scott hoped casting directors would judge him based on his performance instead of his famous family connection. During these early years, his life looked very similar to that of many other struggling actors in Los Angeles. He attended auditions, waited for callbacks, and worked regular jobs to support himself. At one point, he even worked as a bartender, serving drinks while chasing acting opportunities during the day. The path was not glamorous. Like many young performers trying to break into Hollywood, he experienced rejection and uncertainty. Yet this process helped him develop patience and discipline. Instead of relying on his father's reputation, he slowly began building his own experience in the industry. Even though people eventually discovered his true identity, Scott's determination to start from the bottom showed that he wanted to earn his place in Hollywood through dedication rather than privilege. Scott Eastwood's first experiences in the film industry were small but important. Interestingly, some of his earliest roles appeared in films directed by his father, Clint Eastwood. These opportunities included minor parts in movies such as Flags of Our Fathers and Gran Torino. Although these projects were major productions, Scott's roles were brief and did not immediately turn him into a recognizable star. However, working on these sets gave him valuable experience. He had the chance to observe how large films were created and how professional actors approached their craft. Watching his father direct also gave him insight into storytelling from behind the camera. Even with these opportunities, Scott still faced the difficult reality of being constantly compared to his father. Many people assumed that his career would automatically succeed because of his family name. Others believed that any role he received must have come from special treatment. This situation created a strange balance where the Eastwood name opened certain doors but also created skepticism among critics and audiences. Scott understood that the only way to overcome these doubts was through consistent work. Over time, he continued appearing in smaller projects and gradually expanded his resume. He focused on developing a screen presence that reflected his own personality rather than copying the style that made his father famous decades earlier. The film industry can be unpredictable, and for many years Scott's career moved forward slowly. Yet those early roles helped him gain confidence and understand how challenging the entertainment business can be. Instead of becoming discouraged, he continued pursuing opportunities that would allow him to prove himself. Each role, no matter how small, became another step in building a career that he hoped would eventually stand on its own. While Scott Eastwood was working hard to build his career, a devastating personal tragedy changed his life in 2014. His girlfriend, Jewel Brangman, was killed in a car accident that shocked him deeply. The accident later became connected to the massive recall involving the Japanese auto parts manufacturer Takata Corporation. Reports suggested that a defective airbag inflator in the vehicle malfunctioned during the crash. Instead of protecting the passenger as airbags are designed to do, the device reportedly exploded and sent dangerous metal fragments into the car's interior. The tragedy became part of one of the largest automotive safety recalls in history, affecting millions of vehicles around the world. For Scott, however, the global news story was something much more personal. He had lost someone he loved suddenly and violently. At that time, his career was still developing, and he was not yet a widely recognized star. Because of this, much of his grief happened privately, away from the constant attention that famous celebrities often face. Friends and people close to him later explained that the loss had a powerful emotional impact. In interviews years later, Scott admitted that the event left deep scars. For a long time, he found it difficult to even talk about what had happened. The shock and pain were overwhelming, and he needed time to process the tragedy. Losing someone in such an unexpected way forced him to confront the fragile nature of life. Moments that once seemed ordinary suddenly felt more meaningful. This experience shaped the way he looked at relationships, love, and personal connections. Although grief never fully disappears, it often changes people's perspective on what truly matters in life. Despite the emotional pain he carried, Scott Eastwood continued working and eventually reached an important turning point in his career. His breakthrough came when he starred in the romantic drama The Longest Ride. The film introduced him to a wider audience and allowed viewers to see him as more than simply the son of Clint Eastwood. His role in the movie highlighted his charm, physical presence, and ability to carry a leading role. After this project, his name began appearing more frequently in entertainment news and film promotions. Soon after, Scott joined the cast of the superhero movie Suicide Squad. Although his role was not the main focus of the story, the film was a major blockbuster and exposed him to millions of viewers around the world. His career continued growing when he appeared in the action film The Fate of the Furious, part of the popular Fast and Furious franchise. These large productions helped increase his visibility in Hollywood and showed that major studios were willing to cast him in high-budget films. Yet behind the scenes, Scott was still dealing with personal grief from the tragedy he had experienced earlier. This contrast created a complicated emotional situation. Publicly, he was attending premieres, promoting movies, and celebrating career milestones. Privately, he was still processing deep loss. The combination of success and sadness shaped how he approached fame. Instead of chasing attention or publicity, he often appeared more reserved in interviews, focusing on his work rather than his personal life. As Scott Eastwood's career grew, one challenge continued to follow him everywhere: comparisons to his father. Clint Eastwood's influence in Hollywood is enormous. Over several decades, he has starred in iconic westerns, action films, and award-winning dramas, eventually becoming one of the most respected directors in the film industry. Because Scott shares many of his father's physical features, including the same strong jawline and calm expression, audiences often notice the similarities immediately. For some fans, this resemblance feels like a continuation of a legendary screen presence. For Scott, however, it can also create pressure. Every performance he gives is often judged in comparison to the career of Clint Eastwood, which is a difficult standard for any actor to meet. Scott has spoken openly about the importance of building his own identity in the film world. Rather than trying to imitate the characters that made his father famous, he has chosen roles in modern action films, romantic dramas, and ensemble casts. This approach allows him to develop a different style while still honoring the influence of his family background. Over time, he has learned to accept that the Eastwood name will always be part of his story. Instead of fighting against it, he focuses on showing audiences his dedication to the craft of acting. He emphasizes discipline, preparation, and professionalism whenever he works on a project. These qualities help him earn respect from directors and fellow actors who see the effort he puts into his career. By continuing to work steadily, Scott is gradually shaping a legacy that belongs to him alone. In recent years, Scott Eastwood has entered a new stage of his career. The entertainment industry changes quickly, and maintaining visibility can be just as challenging as achieving success in the first place. While he has appeared in several major films, not every project has become a huge box office hit. This reality is common in Hollywood, where even talented actors experience both successes and setbacks. Instead of stepping away from the industry, Scott has continued working steadily and exploring new opportunities. In addition to acting, he has also shown interest in producing films, which allows him to take a more active role in shaping stories and creative decisions. This step suggests that he is thinking about long-term stability in the film world rather than relying only on acting roles. At the same time, he maintains a strong sense of privacy when it comes to his personal life. The tragedy he experienced years ago made him more cautious about relationships and public attention. As a result, he rarely shares details about his romantic life in interviews. Friends describe him as someone who values loyalty, close friendships, and meaningful connections more than public attention. Today, Scott Eastwood continues balancing two powerful influences: the legacy of his famous father and his own desire to create a personal path in Hollywood. His journey shows that success in the entertainment world is rarely simple, even for those who grow up near it. Through determination, resilience, and patience, he continues building a career that reflects both his family heritage and his individual identity. As Scott Eastwood grew older, he also became more aware of the unique structure of his extended family. His father, Clint Eastwood, is known not only for his legendary career but also for having a large and blended family. Over the years, Clint Eastwood has had several relationships, and as a result, Scott has multiple half-siblings. These include actors, writers, and individuals who have chosen lives away from the entertainment world. Growing up outside his father's main household meant that Scott did not spend every day with these siblings during childhood. Instead, many of these relationships developed gradually over time as they met during family gatherings, holidays, and important milestones. This kind of family dynamic can be complicated because each person grows up in different environments and experiences life from a unique perspective. However, the Eastwood family has often shown a strong sense of connection despite these differences. Scott has occasionally spoken about the importance of family and the respect he has for his siblings. Even though their lives followed separate paths, the shared connection to their father created a natural bond between them. In 2018, the family experienced a quiet period of grief when Christina Sandera, who had been Clint Eastwood's longtime partner, passed away. The family has always been careful about keeping personal matters private, so public statements about the loss were limited. However, events like this often bring families closer together as they support one another during difficult times. For Scott, moments of family loss carry special meaning because of the emotional challenges he has already faced in his personal life. The Eastwood family has long been used to living under public attention, but they often choose to handle serious personal matters quietly. This preference for privacy reflects the way Scott himself approaches life today. Although his career places him in front of cameras and interviews, he tends to keep his family relationships out of the spotlight whenever possible. One of the most noticeable changes in Scott Eastwood's life after the tragedy involving Jewel Brangman was the way he approached relationships and personal privacy. Before the accident, Scott appeared more open about his personal life, occasionally being seen with partners or speaking about relationships in interviews. However, after losing someone he loved so suddenly, his attitude toward romance changed significantly. He has openly admitted that the experience made him more cautious about emotional attachment. When a person faces such an unexpected loss, it can create a deep fear of experiencing the same pain again. For Scott, this meant becoming more protective of his emotional world. While his career kept him in the public eye, he gradually placed a firm boundary between his professional life and his private relationships. Over the years, he has been linked to several well-known figures in the entertainment and fashion industries, but he rarely confirms these relationships publicly. Instead of discussing romance in detail, he prefers to focus interviews on his acting projects, personal growth, and the lessons he has learned through difficult experiences. This level of privacy is somewhat unusual in Hollywood, where many celebrities regularly share details of their personal lives through social media or interviews. Scott's choice reflects a desire to maintain control over what parts of his life remain public. For many people who have experienced serious loss, protecting emotional space becomes an important way of healing. While fans remain curious about his romantic life, Scott continues to show that he values privacy and emotional stability more than constant attention. This approach has helped him maintain balance as he navigates the demanding world of Hollywood while still protecting his personal well-being. The entertainment industry is known for its unpredictable nature. Even talented actors can experience periods where projects do not perform as expected. Scott Eastwood has learned this reality firsthand. After appearing in high-profile films such as Suicide Squad and The Fate of the Furious, many people believed that his career would immediately reach superstar status. However, Hollywood careers rarely follow a straight path. Some films achieve major success, while others receive mixed reviews or perform modestly at the box office. Scott has faced both outcomes during his journey. Instead of becoming discouraged, he has continued working consistently and exploring different kinds of roles. Many of his projects highlight his strong physical presence and natural fit for action-oriented characters. At the same time, he has also tried to show emotional depth in romantic dramas and character-driven stories. This variety allows him to demonstrate that he is capable of more than just one type of performance. In recent years, Scott has also begun exploring opportunities behind the camera. Producing films gives actors a greater level of creative control and allows them to shape stories from the beginning of the production process. By becoming involved in this side of filmmaking, Scott is preparing for a long-term future in the industry. This move reflects the influence of his father, Clint Eastwood, who successfully transitioned from acting to directing and producing decades ago. Watching his father build such a respected career likely taught Scott that longevity in Hollywood requires flexibility and creative vision. Rather than relying only on acting roles, expanding into production gives him the chance to influence projects in new ways. This step also shows that he is thinking carefully about the next phase of his career. Today, Scott Eastwood continues working to establish an identity that belongs entirely to him. Carrying the Eastwood name means that comparisons will probably never disappear. However, Scott has learned to accept that reality rather than